Political chaos is a force as old as civilization itself. The same storms of betrayal and shifting power that we face today also threatened the very foundations of ancient Rome. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle in the path becomes the path itself. This was not just a poetic idea, it was a survival manual for leaders navigating a world of constant intrigue. Figures like the philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the playwright Seneca, and the unbending Cato the Younger did not just endure political turmoil. They transformed it into a crucible for their character. In this exploration, you will discover a set of precise mental tools these leaders used to remain calm, clear-headed, and effective when everything around them was falling apart. How did they turn personal betrayals into fuel for growth? What inner fortress allowed them to watch alliances crumble without crumbling themselves? We are about to uncover the specific Stoic principles that built this unshakable resilience. Which single idea from their ancient world could change how you navigate your own modern challenges? In the heart of every Stoic was a fortress. They called this the Inner Citadel, a private mental stronghold where no external chaos could ever breach the walls. This was not a physical place but a state of absolute mental sovereignty. The Stoics argued that the only things truly under our control are our own judgments, our values, and how we choose to respond to events. Everything else, from the actions of rivals to the whims of fortune, lies beyond our command. This fundamental distinction was their first line of defense against the unpredictable and often treacherous world of politics. A senator's vote could be lost, a trusted ally could turn, but a well-fortified mind remained unshaken. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his private meditations, captured this idea perfectly. He stated, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." He further described the soul as an citadel, adding that a man cannot be harmed by anyone if he retreats there, for nothing is more secure. He lived this principle during the brutal Marcomannic Wars, while facing relentless barbarian invasions on the frontier and dealing with a co-emperor he could not fully trust. Marcus was constantly assailed by military setbacks and political plots. Yet his personal writings reveal a man consistently turning inward. Instead of raging against the betrayals or the stress of constant warfare, he used his inner citadel as a space for calm reflection, to reaffirm his duty and to choose his responses with reason, not raw emotion. His power came from this internal refuge. Where in your own life do you feel most controlled by external events? Is it the stress of a volatile work environment, the sting of a personal rejection, or the anxiety of unpredictable news? The Stoic practice asks you to identify that very area and begin the work of construction. Start by recognizing that while you may not control the event itself, you always hold authority over the fortress within, your judgment of it. This is how you lay the first stone. What if betrayal was not a disaster but a necessary part of your story? This is the radical challenge of the second Stoic principle, Amor Fati, which translates to a love of one's fate. For a Roman statesman, this meant embracing every event, not with passive resignation, but with an active acceptance. Political reversals, public humiliations, even the sting of a trusted ally's deceit were not seen as misfortunes to be mourned. They were viewed as the essential raw material for building virtue, the very fire that tempers a stronger character. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, born a slave, framed this idea with stunning clarity. He instructed his students to seek not for events to happen as you wish, but to wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. He was not preaching mere endurance. He was advocating for a profound shift in perception, to see every single occurrence, especially the difficult ones, as coming from the whole of nature and therefore being for your ultimate good. We see this philosophy lived out dramatically in the life of Seneca the Younger. A brilliant writer and advisor to the Emperor Nero, Seneca found himself on the wrong side of power. He was accused of adultery with the emperor's sister and without a trial was sentenced to exile on the island of Corsica. This was a catastrophic fall from grace. He was ripped from the center of the world's greatest empire and banished to a remote, barren place. A modern politician might succumb to bitterness, to plotting revenge, or to despair. But Seneca chose a different path. He practiced Amor Fati. He accepted his exile not as a punishment but as an opportunity. In that forced isolation, away from the distractions and intrigues of Roman politics, he turned inward. He began to write. It was during his 8 years in exile that he produced some of his most profound and lasting philosophical works, including his Consolations. The betrayal and exile that could have ended his intellectual legacy instead became the fertile ground where it truly flourished. He loved his fate by transforming his greatest setback into his most productive period. This is the ultimate freedom Amor Fati offers. When you stop fighting reality and start embracing it, you disarm the event of its power to psychologically harm you. The betrayal itself does not change, but your relationship to it transforms completely. It becomes a chapter in your story of resilience, not the story of your defeat. Think of a recent setback in your own life, perhaps a professional disappointment or a personal letdown. For a moment, set aside the frustration. What if you could look at that event and say, this too is for me? What strength could it be inviting you to develop? What new direction might it be clearing for you? This is not about approving of the wrong done to you, but about claiming your power to use it, to grow from it, and in a strange way, to love it for the person it forces you to become. From the heavens, Rome would look less like an empire and more like an anthill. The Grand Senate House becomes a tiny speck, its debates and power struggles reduced to a silent, frantic dance. This is the essence of the Stoic view from above, a powerful mental exercise designed to shatter the illusion of self-importance that political drama so carefully cultivates. The practice is simple in concept but profound in effect. You deliberately pull your perspective back, far beyond the confines of the moment, to see your life and its challenges within the vast sweep of cosmic space and historical time. By framing your immediate crisis against the backdrop of continents, oceans, and centuries, you drain it of its overwhelming emotional weight. The betrayal that felt like a world-ending event suddenly looks like a small, passing cloud. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this perspective in his private writings. He reminded himself to frequently consider the connection of all things in the universe and their relation to one another. He would reflect on how all the material things of life quickly vanish into the succession of being, and how the vast majority of human affairs are worthless. He pictured the crowded markets, the grand ceremonies, the farms, and the armies, all as little more than ants laboring in a tiny hill. A leader who mastered this view was Emperor Antoninus Pius, the adoptive father of Marcus Aurelius. His reign was not marked by epic wars or dramatic reforms, but by a profound and steady stability. He faced the same petty intrigues and personal attacks in the Senate that toppled lesser men. Senators would scheme for favor, spread malicious rumors, and challenge his authority on minor points. Where another emperor might have reacted with rage, seeing each slight as a direct threat to his power, Antoninus Pius possessed a different kind of vision. He saw the Senate floor from above. He understood that the squabbles of today would be forgotten dust in 100 years, let alone 1,000. This cosmic perspective allowed him to respond to provocations not with personal offense, but with a calm, detached reason. He addressed the needs of the empire without getting entangled in the emotional noise of its politics. The insult that could have consumed a week of his energy was, from this higher vantage point, simply irrelevant. You can apply this same lens to the stressors in your own life. Take a current anxiety, a conflict at work, or a personal disappointment that feels all-consuming. Now perform the exercise. Close your eyes and pull your mind up. See your city from the sky, then your country from space. Look back at the earth as a pale blue dot in a vast, dark emptiness. Then project your vision forward in time. See yourself a year from now. Will this problem matter? See your street a century from now. Will anyone remember this struggle? This is not meant to make your life seem meaningless, but to free you from the tyranny of the immediate. It creates a space for calm reason to re-enter the room. What current challenge could you shrink down to its proper size, simply by choosing to see it from above? The Stoics didn't wait for disaster to strike. They invited it in for dinner first. This deliberate practice is known as Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. It is the systematic act of visualizing the worst possible outcomes in vivid detail, not out of paranoia, but as a form of psychological inoculation. By mentally rehearsing potential disasters, from political betrayal to personal loss, a leader could strip those future events of their power to shock and paralyze. The goal was never to live in fear, but to achieve a profound and unshakable calm by confronting fear on their own terms. Seneca articulated the surprising benefit of this exercise with elegant precision. He wrote, "He who has been poor for a long time is rich." What did he mean? He was pointing out that the person who has mentally rehearsed poverty, who has truly accepted it as a possibility, can never be made truly poor by circumstance. Their sense of self and their tranquility do not depend on their wealth. They have already faced that loss in their mind and discovered that they would remain standing. This mental rehearsal was a cornerstone of strategic planning for Roman commanders. Before a major battle, a general like Scipio Africanus would not only plan for victory. He would sit in his tent and calmly walk through the possibility of catastrophic failure. He would visualize his battle lines breaking. He would imagine the panic of his soldiers, the sound of enemy war cries drawing nearer, even the potential betrayal of his own officers. He would feel the sting of that disloyalty in advance and decide how he would respond, not with rage, but with command. By doing this, he was not inviting defeat. He was vaccinating himself against the panic of the unexpected. If a trusted lieutenant did turn cowardly during the fight, it would not shatter Scipio's resolve. He had already lived through that scenario a dozen times in his mind. The event, when it happened, would feel like a familiar, manageable challenge rather than a world-shattering surprise. This practice transforms anxiety into preparedness. You can apply this same Stoic tool to the modern arena of your career. Think of a professional fear you carry, perhaps the worry that a colleague you trust will take credit for your work or undermine you to a superior. Now, instead of anxiously avoiding the thought, invite it in. Mentally walk through the entire scenario. Visualize the moment you discover the betrayal. Feel the initial surge of anger and hurt, then plan your Stoic response. What is within your control? You control your reaction. You control your next move. You control whether you confront the situation with reason or emotion. You realize that your character and your capability remain intact, regardless of another person's actions. By rehearsing this, you are not manifesting failure. You are building an inner fortress so strong that when, or if, the real test comes, you will not be taken by surprise. You will already know the path through the chaos. In a world of shifting political alliances, What can a leader actually control? The Stoics answered this with a stark and liberating division they called the Dichotomy of Control. This principle is the bedrock of all emotional stability, the ultimate filter for deciding where to invest your energy and where to find your peace. The core idea is brutally simple. Some things are up to us and some things are not. The philosopher Epictetus began his entire manual for life, the Enchiridion, with this very point. He wrote, "Some things are in our control and others not. In our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own actions. Not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Your judgments, your intentions, your efforts, your character, these are your sovereign territory. The loyalty of others, the outcome of an election, public opinion, these are the territory of others and of fortune. Trying to command what is not yours to command is the source of all frustration and anxiety. Freedom is found in focusing exclusively on your own actions. No figure embodied this stubborn focus more than Cato the Younger. He stood as the last great defender of the Roman Republic against the rising power of Julius Caesar. Cato knew that defeating Caesar, a man of immense wealth and popular support, was an outcome far outside his direct control, so he did not tie his sense of worth or his peace of mind to that final victory. Instead, he focused with laser precision on what was within his control, his own virtuous action. He used every procedural tool in the Senate to delay and obstruct Caesar's ambitions. He spoke with unflinching integrity, even when it made him unpopular. He lived a life of stark personal austerity to highlight the corruption of his opponents. He was playing a game where the final score was not his to decide. His job was simply to play his position with absolute excellence and virtue. When the Civil War ended in a republic defeat and Caesar's ultimate triumph, Cato chose to take his own life rather than live under a dictator. This was not a surrender. It was his final, controlled action. He could not control the fate of the Republic, but he could control his own commitment to its ideals until his very last breath. He accepted the outcome he could not change while mastering the one thing he always could, his own character. This ancient filter can bring immediate clarity to your modern anxieties. Take a moment and bring to mind 3 things you are currently worrying about. Now, grab a piece of paper or just open a note on your phone. Create 2 columns. Label one within my control, label the other outside my control. Now, sort your worries. Are you anxious about a looming deadline? The final outcome may be outside your control, but the effort you put in today is entirely within it. Are you stressed about a critical comment from a colleague? Their opinion is in their column, but your reaction and how you choose to process it belongs in yours. This simple act of categorization is not just an exercise, it is a transfer of power. It moves your attention from the storm you cannot calm to the helm you can still firmly grasp. For the Stoic leader, losing an election was preferable to losing their integrity. This radical idea forms the bedrock of their final and most transformative principle, that virtue is the sole good. In the ruthless arena of Roman politics, where power, wealth, and fame were the glittering prizes, the Stoics declared them all to be indifferent. They were not inherently good or bad. The only true good was the quality of your own moral character, your wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. This belief acted as a powerful vaccine against the corrupting lure of power. If you believe that your status is the ultimate prize, you will compromise anything to keep it. But if you believe that your integrity is the only real possession you have, then no political defeat can truly harm you, and no betrayal can force you to betray yourself. Marcus Aurelius captured this duty of a leader perfectly when he wrote, A man must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. He was reminding himself that his legitimacy did not come from the Senate's approval or the cheers of the crowd, but from his own unwavering commitment to just action. He saw his own character as the primary work of art, and his governance was merely the expression of that character. This is why he could spend years on a distant, miserable military campaign, focusing on the tedious details of logistics and the fair treatment of his soldiers, even when it was politically inconvenient and far from the glory of Rome. He was not building a reputation, he was living his virtue. His daily practice was to ask not, "How can I win?" but "How can I act justly in this moment?" This redefines the very concept of success. So what does winning mean in your own life? Is it the promotion, the social media likes, the approval of your peers? Or is it something internal, the private knowledge that you acted with courage when you were afraid, that you chose fairness when you could have taken advantage, that you remained disciplined when temptation was strong? The Stoics invite you to shift your scorecard from external validation to internal virtue. When you do that, you become truly unshakable, because your worth is no longer held hostage by outcomes you cannot control. You stand erect on your own, strip the story away from the event. What remains, often it is a simple, unadorned fact, devoid of the emotional weight we instinctively pile onto it. This is the core of the seventh Stoic principle, objective judgment, the practice of seeing the world as it is, not as our fears and hopes paint it to be. Our emotional turmoil almost never comes from the event itself, but from the judgment we layer on top of it. We do not suffer from the news of a rival's promotion. We suffer from our internal narrative that labels it as a catastrophic defeat or a personal injustice. Marcus Aurelius offered a direct path out of this self-inflicted pain. He wrote, "Remove the judgment, and you have removed the thought, I am harmed." Remove the thought, I am harmed, and the harm itself is removed. He is pointing to a profound truth. The harm exists first in your perception. Consider a Roman consul, a man at the pinnacle of power. A messenger arrives breathless with devastating news. A trusted political ally, a man he elevated and defended, has publicly defected to the opposing faction. The immediate, raw interpretation would scream betrayal, disaster, a humiliating personal attack. The story he could tell himself is one of ruin and disrespect. But a Stoic consul would pause. He would consciously strip away the dramatic narrative. He would state the objective fact, and only the fact: my ally has joined the other faction. That is all. This simple statement contains no inherent catastrophe. It is a piece of data, a change in the political landscape. By refusing to add the interpretation of harm, he prevents the emotional storm from clouding his reason. Now he is free to ask the only question that matters. Given this new reality, what is the most rational and virtuous action I can take? His energy shifts from internal panic to external, effective response. You can apply this same surgical clarity to the irritations of your own life. Think of a recent annoyance, perhaps a last-minute cancellation of plans or a critical email from a coworker. Notice the story you automatically built around it. They do not respect my time. They are trying to undermine me. Now, practice the Stoic exercise. Remove the story and state only the objective facts. The meeting scheduled for 2 o'clock will not occur. My colleague wrote that the report contained 3 factual errors. See how the emotional charge begins to dissipate. The event is the same, but your relationship to it is now one of calm observation, not reactive suffering. What simple, unadorned fact is hiding beneath a story you are telling yourself today? How do you act rightly in a system that often rewards the opposite? The Stoics offered a clear and demanding answer through their 8th principle, the discipline of action. This was not about personal tranquility alone, but about directing that inner calm toward virtuous deeds that serve the wider human community. For a leader, this meant that every decision, every policy, had to be measured against a single standard: is this just and for the common good? This moral compass provided direction when the political winds shifted toward selfishness and corruption. The philosopher Epictetus framed this duty with profound simplicity. He taught that you are a citizen of the universe, a vital part of a greater whole. He instructed his students to never say, "I am an Athenian" or "I am a Roman," but rather, "I am a citizen of the world." This expanded identity shattered the narrow loyalties of tribe or faction. Your obligation was not just to your political party or your personal advancement, but to the entire human race. Acting for the common good became the natural expression of this worldview. We see this philosophy in action with Emperor Nerva, an older, respected senator who ascended to power after a period of tyranny. He faced immense pressure from the powerful Praetorian Guard and from factions within the Senate who expected rewards and preferred a dynastic succession. But Nerva, guided by Stoic ideals, made a decision that placed the stability and welfare of the empire above all else. He looked past any potential heirs from his own bloodline and instead adopted a man, Trajan, who was not in Rome. He chose Trajan based solely on his proven merit as a military commander and his strong character. This was an act of profound civic virtue. It was a clear message that the leadership of Rome was a duty to the people, not a prize for a privileged family. By prioritizing the common good over dynastic ambition, Nerva secured a peaceful transition of power and ushered in a golden age under one of Rome's greatest emperors. His action was a quiet rebellion against a system that often rewarded selfishness. He demonstrated that true strength lies in committing your power to a purpose larger than yourself. This ancient discipline asks a direct question of you today. In your own sphere of influence, whether at work, in your family, or in your local community, what is one concrete action you could take this week that benefits the wider circle, not just your own immediate interests? It does not need to be a grand gesture. It could be mentoring a junior colleague, organizing a neighborhood clean-up, or simply advocating for a fair solution when an easier, selfish one is available. Where can you plant a seed for the common good? You could die tomorrow, so could the person betraying you. This stark reality is the foundation of the 9th Stoic principle, Memento Mori, the remembrance of death. Far from being a morbid fixation, this practice was a tool for radical clarity, a way to instantly distinguish what is trivial from what is eternal. For a Roman leader lost in the labyrinth of political games, the constant awareness of mortality was a beacon that cut through the fog. It reduced the perceived stakes of every insult, every rivalry, and every lost election to their proper, insignificant size. Why waste your final hours scheming for revenge when you could be acting with justice? Why cling to a position of power that death will inevitably strip from you anyway? Marcus Aurelius returned to this thought again and again in his private meditations. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He also reflected on the leveling power of death, noting how the ashes of Alexander the Great and his stable boy are now indistinguishable. In the end, the emperor and the slave, the traitor and the betrayed, all meet the same fate. This realization fosters a profound detachment from the petty squabbles that consume so much energy. Consider a Roman praetor, a senior judge with immense power. He faces daily pressures from corrupt colleagues and powerful families seeking favorable rulings. A personal insult from a rival could easily consume his thoughts, leading him to plot a counterattack. But if this praetor begins his day by consciously remembering, "I am mortal, and my time here is short," his entire focus shifts. The insult loses its sting. The drive for personal power seems hollow. Instead, his limited time creates an urgent need to act virtuously now. He focuses his energy on passing just laws and rendering fair verdicts, actions that will outlive him. His legacy becomes not the enemies he crushed, but the justice he administered. The contemplation of death does not inspire a frantic scramble for more, but a calm and deliberate pursuit of what truly matters. It asks you to weigh your daily actions against the ultimate measure of a finite life. Take a moment for a sobering exercise. Grab a piece of paper and write down what you would genuinely focus on today if you knew with certainty that it was your last day. Would you finally have that difficult but necessary conversation? Would you spend an extra hour with your family? Would you complete the project that represents your best work? Now hold that list next to your actual to-do list for today. Where is the disconnect? The purpose is not to instill fear, but to create a powerful alignment between your deepest values and your daily actions. Memento Mori is the ultimate tool for prioritizing a life of meaning over a life of reaction. The Stoics saw a single thread connecting the emperor to the slave and to the stars above. This final principle, Sympatheia, is the ultimate culmination of their wisdom, a profound recognition that the entire cosmos is one living, breathing, and rational organism. In this vast system, everything is woven together, each part dependent on the others, from the highest senator to the lowest farmer, from the planets in their orbits to the cells in your body. For a leader, this belief transforms the very meaning of their role. A political betrayal is no longer a solitary, malicious act aimed personally at you. It becomes a single note, perhaps a dissonant one, in a grand, complex symphony you cannot fully hear. Your duty is not to rage against the musician who played it, but to understand its place in the whole composition and work to restore the harmony. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this interconnected web. He wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." He saw his own well-being as inseparable from the health of the empire, and by extension, the entire human race. His responsibility was to act for the common good, because harming the whole would ultimately mean harming his own soul, his own place in the cosmic order. Consider the challenges faced by an emperor like Antoninus Pius. News would arrive of a rebellion in a distant province, a violent rejection of Roman rule. The easy, conventional response would be to see it as a simple threat, an insult to imperial authority that must be crushed with overwhelming force. But a leader guided by Sympatheia would look deeper. He would ask what thread in the universal web had snapped. Was it a greedy local governor exploiting the people? Was it a cultural misunderstanding that bred resentment? He would view the rebellion not just as a military problem, but as a symptom of a broken connection, a failure in the duty to maintain harmony. His response would then aim not merely at punishment, but at reweaving that thread, restoring justice and order so the entire system could function properly again. This perspective dissolves the loneliness of command and replaces it with a sense of shared purpose. You are never truly isolated in your struggle because you are part of something immense and ancient. The next time you find yourself locked in a personal or professional conflict, try on this Stoic lens. Step back from your own position just for a moment and attempt to see the situation from the other person's vantage point. What thread are they holding? What pressure are they under? What part of the shared human experience has led them to this point? This does not mean you must agree with them or excuse harmful behavior. It means you choose to see them not as a solitary enemy, but as another part of the same whole, acting from their own limited understanding. This shift in perception from isolation to connection is the final, liberating step in building an unshakable character. Sometimes the most powerful move is to surrender. This is the paradoxical heart of the 11th Stoic principle, the art of acquiescence. It is the strength found not in resistance, but in a clear-eyed, willing acceptance of what cannot be changed. Do not mistake this for weakness or passive resignation. This is an active, rational choice to stop fighting the unchangeable currents of reality. By yielding to necessity, you conserve your most precious resources, your energy and your will, and redirect them toward the shores you can actually influence. The philosopher Epictetus framed this art with unflinching practicality. He instructed, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and you will go on well." He was not advising wishful thinking, but a strategic alignment with the facts on the ground. Your life's material is what happens. Your craft is what you choose to build with it. We see the ultimate expression of this principle in the death of Seneca. After years of serving as an advisor to the Emperor Nero, he was ultimately ordered to take his own life. The charge was conspiracy, a likely false accusation from a paranoid ruler. Seneca was given a death sentence. He had no power to reverse the emperor's decree. A futile battle was impossible. In that final moment, he could have raged, wept, or begged. Instead, he practiced the art of acquiescence. He accepted the necessity of his fate with calm and courage. Historical accounts describe him calmly comforting his grieving friends, asking them where their philosophy had gone. He then opened his veins, meeting his end not as a victim, but as a man who had mastered his final and most difficult circumstance. His surrender was his ultimate act of control, a demonstration that his inner freedom was beyond any tyrant's reach. His power was in his choice to accept what he could not change. This art asks you to identify the unavoidable circumstances in your own life. It might be a chronic health condition, a past mistake with lasting consequences, or the difficult personality of someone you must interact with daily. For a moment, stop fighting it. Instead, practice a simple statement of conscious acceptance. Say to yourself, "This is the reality of the situation. I cannot change this fact." By accepting it, I free myself to focus on what I can control, my attitude, my efforts, and my response within this new framework. What single unavoidable circumstance are you currently exhausting yourself by resisting? What would it feel like to lay down that burden, not in defeat, but in strategic redirection of your strength? Your mind is a fortress gate. Do not raise the portcullis for every rumor that knocks. This is the essence of the 12th Stoic principle, the discipline of guarding your impressions. Before an external event can disrupt your inner peace, it must pass through two gates. The first is the initial, raw impression, the involuntary flash of anger or sting of fear. The second is your assent, your conscious approval or rejection of that impression. The Stoics argued that the space between these two gates is where your true freedom lies. It is the crucial moment where you choose whether to be swept away by a feeling or to stand firm in your reason. The philosopher Epictetus gave us the foundational insight for this practice. He taught, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." The event itself is neutral. The report of a betrayal, the news of a political defeat, these are just pieces of information. The disturbance comes from our immediate, unexamined judgment that this information is catastrophic. A Roman governor stationed in a volatile province would face this test constantly. A breathless messenger arrives, claiming that a trusted local chieftain, a key ally, has been secretly meeting with rebel leaders. The first impression is a volcanic surge of betrayal and rage. The unguarded mind would immediately assent. It would label the chieftain a traitor and order his immediate arrest or execution, potentially igniting a wider conflict based on a single, unverified report. But a Stoic governor, trained to guard his impressions, would seize that sacred space between the news and his reaction. He would feel the heat of the initial impression, but he would not grant it his approval. He would pause and say to himself, "This is only an impression. I must examine the evidence." He would dispatch scouts to gather more intelligence. He would consider the source of the report and its potential motives. He would ask if the chieftain's actions could have another, more innocent explanation. By withholding his assent, he maintains control. He prevents a rash decision that could cost thousands of lives. His power comes not from suppressing the feeling, but from refusing to let the feeling dictate his command. Think back to a recent moment in your own life when a first impression hijacked your response. Perhaps it was an angry email from a colleague that made your blood boil, or a piece of gossip about a friend that immediately colored your opinion of them. Recall the immediate, compelling story your mind constructed. Now, rewind that moment. What if you had guarded that impression? What if, instead of raising the portcullis and letting that emotional army storm your mental fortress, you had simply acknowledged the knock at the gate? What clarity might you have found in that small, deliberate pause? Before he was an emperor, Marcus Aurelius was a man, and his job was to be a good one. This focus on the fundamental duties of a human being is the core of the 13th Stoic principle, role ethics. In a world of dizzying political titles and shifting alliances, the Stoics found an anchor in the simple, unwavering commitment to performing their specific roles with absolute excellence. Your purpose was not found in seeking a higher station, but in perfecting the one you currently occupied, whether you were a senator, a soldier, or a parent. This philosophy provided a clear, virtuous path through the most complex and treacherous landscapes, because it constantly redirected attention from what you were called to what you were supposed to do. Marcus Aurelius captured this daily practice in his meditations. He wrote, "I do my duty, other things trouble me not." He reminded himself that his own job was to be a good man, and that this was his primary work, a craft more important than any imperial decree. He saw himself as a bee in a hive, whose purpose was to do the work of a bee, contributing to the whole through the diligent performance of its specific, natural function. As emperor, this meant his focus was not on the purple robe or the adulation of the crowds. It was on the daily, often tedious, duties of his station. He would rise before dawn to review legal cases, ensuring justice was administered fairly. He would personally inspect the grain supply for the city, a task far beneath the prestige of his title, but essential to his role as a provider for his people. He would write letters and manage the vast imperial bureaucracy, not as a power to be wielded, but as a responsibility to be discharged with care. While other emperors were consumed by paranoia, plotting against perceived rivals, Marcus Aurelius was consumed by his to-do list, a list defined by virtue. The political intrigue and potential betrayals swirling around him became background noise. His compass was not the fear of losing power, but the duty of using it well. This Stoic lens can bring immediate clarity and purpose to your own life. Take a moment to mentally list your key roles. You are a professional, a parent, a friend, a citizen, a partner. In each of these roles, you have a set of duties. The anxiety of office politics loses its grip when you shift your focus from winning a rivalry to perfectly performing your professional duties with integrity and skill. The stress of parenting transforms when you see your role not as achieving perfect outcomes for your children, but as consistently providing love, guidance, and presence. Your purpose is not a distant destination to be found, but a series of actions to be performed with excellence, right where you are. What is one specific way you could excel in your role as a colleague this week? Perhaps by offering genuine support to a teammate. What is one concrete action that would define excellence in your role as a family member? may be by setting aside dedicated, phone-free time to listen. The path to an unshakable character is paved with these small, deliberate, and perfectly executed duties. The Stoics believed in getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. This 14th principle, voluntary discomfort, was their method for proactively training resilience. It is the deliberate act of periodically choosing hardship, not because life demands it, but to prove to yourself that you can thrive without the comforts you fear losing. By willingly experiencing minor deprivation, you build an inner reserve of strength that makes external turmoil, whether political betrayal or a sudden fall from status, feel far less threatening. You are not just preparing for a storm, you are learning to dance in the rain. Seneca captured the profound purpose of this exercise. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" He was not advocating for a life of misery, but for a strategic drill. By practicing poverty, you disarm it. You discover that your happiness and your character are not housed in your villa or your wardrobe, but in a place no external force can ever reach. No Roman statesman embodied this austere training more visibly than Cato the Younger. While his peers in the Senate lounged in luxury, Cato often walked the streets of Rome barefoot, even in cold weather. He wore only a simple, dark toga, rejecting the fine, purple-bordered garments that signaled high status. He deliberately consumed plain food and cheap wine, not because he had to, but because he chose to. This was not performance art. It was a daily, physical rehearsal for the potential loss of everything. When his political cause, the defense of the Republic, was ultimately crushed by Julius Caesar, Cato faced the ultimate deprivation, his own life. Yet, because he had spent a lifetime practicing for this very moment, he met his death not with terror, but with a calm and steady resolve. His voluntary discomforts had built a fortress of self-sufficiency that no political defeat could ever breach. The comfort you sacrifice today becomes the resilience you bank for tomorrow. What small, voluntary discomfort could you invite into your own life for just one day? It does not need to be dramatic. Could you take a cold shower instead of a warm one? Could you skip your afternoon snack and sit with the feeling of hunger for an hour? Could you walk a longer route home in the rain? In that small act of choosing the harder path, you are not punishing yourself. You are sending a powerful message to your deepest fears, a message that you are stronger than your circumstances. When you hear the accusation, "Don't speak, breathe," this is the Stoic pause, a moment of deliberate stillness you place between a provocation and your reply. It is the ultimate practical application of cognitive detachment, a space where you reclaim your sovereignty from raw emotion. In that brief silence, you are not suppressing your feelings. You are creating a chamber where reason can be heard over the roar of passion. This single pause is the difference between a measured response that upholds your character and a regrettable outburst that you will spend weeks or years trying to undo. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus directly addressed the mechanism behind this. He taught that we must discipline the faculty of assent, that inner gatekeeper which approves or rejects our initial impressions. When an insult arrives, your first impression is one of anger and hurt. The undisciplined mind immediately assents, shouting, "This is an outrage," and propels you toward a retaliatory strike. But the Stoic, in that crucial pause, withholds assent. They examine the impression. Is this truly an outrage, or is it merely the opinion of a flawed person? What would a virtuous response look like? The pause is the space where this examination occurs, where you choose your action rather than being chosen by your reaction. Picture a Stoic-influenced senator standing on the Senate floor, a rival seeking to provoke him and win a political point. launches a vicious and public personal insult, questioning his integrity and his family's name. The entire chamber falls silent, all eyes fixed on the senator. The first impression is a white-hot flash of humiliation and rage. The instinct is to fire back with a sharper, more cutting insult to win the moment and save face. But the stoic senator does not speak. He breathes. He lets the silence hang in the air for 3 full seconds, 5 full seconds, a lifetime in politics. In that pause, he detaches. He asks himself what is within his control. He cannot control the words that were spoken, but he has absolute control over the words he speaks next. He considers his role. Is his purpose to win a petty squabble or to serve the common good? He then meets his accuser's gaze, his own expression calm. His voice, when it finally comes, is steady and clear. He says, "I will not dishonor this body or myself by trading insults. Let us instead return to the matter of the grain supply for the people, which is why we are truly here." In that moment, he did not win the argument, he transcended it. His pause allowed him to craft a response that demonstrated true strength and virtue, utterly disarming his provocateur. You can train this muscle in your own life with a simple exercise. The next time you receive critical feedback, whether in a work email or in a conversation, commit to inserting a 5-second pause before you formulate any reply. Feel the initial defensive reaction rise up and then just breathe. In that space, ask yourself, what part of this is true and useful? What is my goal in responding? This tiny pocket of silence is your training ground for immense inner strength. What conversation awaits where your pause could change everything? The past is gone. The future is uncertain. Your power lies in this single, fleeting moment. This relentless focus on the present is the 16th principle, the recognition that the now is the only arena where you can truly act. For the Stoics, dwelling on past betrayals or agonizing over future ones was more than a waste of energy. It was a dereliction of your current duty. Anxiety about what has already happened or what might happen next pulls you out of the only time and place where your virtue can be exercised this very minute. Marcus Aurelius offered a direct command to himself on this point. He wrote, "Concentrate every minute like a Roman on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice." Notice the intensity of that instruction, every minute. He is not advising a casual awareness, but a deep, purposeful immersion in the immediate task. This is the antidote to the political mind, which is so often lost in the ghosts of yesterday's conspiracies or the shadows of tomorrow's potential threats. Consider Marcus Aurelius himself, not in the meditation chamber, but in his command tent on the Danube frontier. He is hundreds of miles from Rome, where senators are undoubtedly scheming, spreading rumors in his absence, and jockeying for favor. A lesser leader would be consumed by these distant political machinations, his mind divided between the battlefield before him and the intrigues behind him. But Marcus knew that such rumination was a trap. His duty in that present moment was not to control the whispers in the Senate, but to command his legions. He focused on the tactical report in his hands, the logistics of supplying his troops, the morale of the soldiers outside his tent. By pouring his entire being into the demands of the present, he performed his duty with excellence and, in doing so, starved his anxieties of the attention they craved. The present moment is a sanctuary from the storms of time. You can practice this grounding right now. Set a timer on your phone for 1 minute. For those 60 seconds, choose one simple task. It could be drinking a glass of water, feeling the cool liquid and the sensation of swallowing. It could be focusing entirely on your breathing, the rise and fall of your chest. When your mind inevitably wanders to a past regret or a future worry, Gently guide it back to the single, tangible thing you are doing. Notice how, in that focused minute, the loudest anxieties begin to fade into the background. They have no power in the now unless you invite them in. What important task is directly in front of you, waiting for the gift of your full and undivided attention? What if your sense of worth wasn't tied to your latest performance review or a colleague's compliment? The 17th Stoic principle offers this profound freedom, an indifference to external praise and blame. This is not about becoming cold or unfeeling, but about anchoring your self-assessment in the only harbor you truly control, your own virtuous action. When your value is determined by an internal scorecard of integrity and effort, the cheers of the crowd and their jeers lose their power to control you. You become unmanipulatable, a rock in the shifting tides of public opinion. The philosopher Epictetus gave clear instructions for this mental shift. He advised, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This witty retort reveals a deeper truth. The opinions of others, whether flattering or critical, are often based on a fragment of the whole picture, on their own biases and limited understanding. To base your entire self-worth on such an incomplete and fickle report is to build your house on sand. Consider a Stoic consul facing a critical vote on a new tax law. He has studied the issue thoroughly and believes, based on justice and the long-term good of Rome, that the law must pass. Yet he knows it will be deeply unpopular with both the common people, who will bear the immediate cost, and with wealthy senators who will see their privileges curtailed. The easy path is to vote against it, to win the easy praise of the mob and the grateful support of the powerful. But the Stoic consul's compass points only to virtue. He performs his duty, he votes for the law, explaining his reasoning clearly. He is met with boos in the forum and cold shoulders in the Senate. He feels the sting of their disapproval. The first impression of hurt is natural. But he does not grant that impression his assent. He does not internalize their blame. He returns home that evening and his self-worth remains intact. He knows he acted with justice and courage. The external noise, while loud, cannot breach his inner citadel. This inner grounding is your ultimate shield against the psychological warfare of daily life. When a manager's praise sends you soaring, you are giving them control over your emotional state. When a critic's comment ruins your week, you have handed them the keys to your peace of mind. The Stoic practice asks you to take those keys back. Here is a simple exercise to begin that reclamation. Sometime today, take a moment to write down one thing you are genuinely proud of from the past week, something that no one else saw or praised. Perhaps it was the patience you showed with a frustrated child, the extra 20 minutes you spent refining a project out of personal pride, or the moment you chose kindness when you were tempted to be curt. Acknowledge that act of quiet virtue. That is your true currency. That is the foundation of a self-worth that no external storm can ever erode. The obstacle is not in the way, the obstacle is the way. This radical reframing is the heart of the 18th Stoic principle, a deliberate alchemy that transforms every barrier into a path forward. For the Stoic, a betrayal or a political crisis was not a blockade on the road to a good life. It was the very material from which that life was built. Each challenge presented a specific, demanding invitation to practice a particular virtue, to forge a stronger character in the fire of difficulty. Marcus Aurelius gave this idea its most enduring form. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was not speaking in riddles. He was providing a precise mental tool. When an obstacle arises, your job is not to curse its existence, but to ask a new question. How can this very thing be used to serve my purpose and strengthen my resolve? We see this philosophy tested to its absolute limit in one of the most personal betrayals of Marcus Aurelius's reign. While he was away on the demanding Danube frontier, his most trusted general in the east, Avidius Cassius, heard a false rumor of the emperor's death. Instead of verifying the report, Cassius seized the opportunity and declared himself emperor, plunging half the empire into a civil war. This was the ultimate political obstacle. It was a betrayal by a man Marcus had promoted and trusted implicitly, a move that threatened to fracture the empire and cost countless lives. The conventional, emotional response would have been a furious, vengeful crusade. But Marcus Aurelius saw the obstacle as the way. He framed this crisis not as a personal insult, but as an opportunity to practice the virtues of clemency and justice on a grand scale. He did not rush to execute Cassius's family in Rome, a standard practice meant to deter rivals. Instead, he publicly promised them clemency, aiming to de-escalate the conflict. He even expressed sorrow for Cassius, noting the man's error in judgment. When Cassius was ultimately assassinated by his own officers, ending the rebellion, Marcus Aurelius did not celebrate. He reportedly grieved and insisted on seeing the letters his former friend had written, perhaps to understand the misunderstanding that led to the revolt. He then traveled to the eastern provinces to personally restore order, not with punitive measures, but with a focus on reconciliation and stability. The betrayal became his way to demonstrate unprecedented imperial mercy, solidifying his legacy as a philosopher king who lived the virtues he preached. This transformative art is not reserved for emperors. It is a tool you can pick up and use today. Bring to mind one single current obstacle in your own life. It might be a difficult project at work that feels overwhelming, a strained relationship, or a financial pressure that causes constant anxiety. Now apply the Stoic question. How can this very obstacle become the way? If the project is demanding, it is your way to practice diligence and resilience. If the relationship is strained, it is your training ground for patience and clear communication. If the financial pressure is tight, it is your path to cultivating resourcefulness and re-evaluating what you truly value. The obstacle itself does not change, but your relationship to it undergoes a revolution. It is no longer a wall stopping your progress. It is the gym where your character gets stronger. What single challenge is staring you down right now, and what specific virtue is it inviting you to develop? The Stoic leader gave their all, but always with a silent prayer to fortune. This is the essence of the 19th principle, the reserve clause, a mental habit of adding two simple, unspoken words to every endeavor, fate permitting. It is the practice of investing your complete effort into a goal while simultaneously releasing your attachment to the specific outcome. This is not a formula for half-hearted attempts, but for wholehearted action free from the chains of expectation. The reserve clause allows you to work tirelessly for a just cause, yet remain untroubled if the world does not bend to your will, because your success was never defined by the result, but by the integrity of your attempt. Seneca captured this balanced approach to life with elegant wisdom. He advised that we should plan our lives as if we have forever, giving our grand projects the careful, long-term attention they deserve. But we must live each day as if it is our last, acting with urgency and virtue in the present, fully aware that the future is not ours to command. This acknowledges the fundamental uncertainty of all human affairs, especially in the volatile theater of politics. Consider a Roman magistrate, a tribune of the plebs, who has drafted a law to reform the grain dole, a measure he genuinely believes will bring greater justice to the common people. He commits himself completely, He spends weeks building alliances, delivers powerful speeches in the forum, and works late into the night persuading his colleagues. He does everything within his control with excellence and passion. Yet, in his mind, he has already added the reserve clause. He has accepted that the final vote is in the hands of other senators, subject to their whims, their secret deals, and the unpredictable mood of the day. When the vote is finally called and his law is defeated, he feels a natural disappointment, but he does not descend into frustration or despair. His equanimity remains intact. Why? Because he knows his duty was to fight the good fight, not to win at all costs. The outcome was never his to guarantee, only his effort was. His character is unharmed, and his energy is preserved to fight again tomorrow for the next just cause. This mental habit liberates you from the roller coaster of hope and fear. To practice this today, choose one task you will undertake with full commitment. It could be a work project, a difficult conversation, or a personal goal. Pour your complete focus and energy into it, but as you begin, consciously add that silent, mental reserve clause if nothing prevents it. Acknowledge that factors beyond your control, from a colleague's mood to a sudden change in circumstances, could alter the final result. Your mission is to control the quality of your effort, not the final score. What one thing will you do today with all your heart, while quietly making peace with whatever fortune may bring? Who do you want in your corner when betrayal strikes? The Stoics prepared for such moments by carefully selecting their personal council of the dead, a mental assembly of virtuous figures whose character could guide their own. This 20th principle, the contemplation of role models, provided them with a living template for action when their own resolve was tested. It was not enough to simply know the philosophy. They needed to see it embodied in a person, to have a clear image of what courage or integrity actually looked like in motion. By holding the example of a sage in their mind, they could ask themselves in any difficult situation, what would this person do now? Marcus Aurelius left us a profound record of this practice in his Meditations. The very first book is a detailed tribute to the virtues of the people who raised him, most notably his adoptive father, the Emperor Antoninus Pius. He did not list his father's conquests or his wealth. Instead, he meticulously recorded his character traits. He wrote of his gentle demeanor, his unwavering calm in the face of slander, his refusal to be rushed into decisions, and his profound sense of duty. Marcus would consciously recall these qualities when he himself faced political pressure or personal insult, using the memory of his father's steadiness as a compass for his own conduct. Imagine a young Roman senator new to the treacherous currents of power. He is offered a deal, a small compromise of his principles in exchange for a powerful alliance. The pressure is immense, the rewards tangible. In that pivotal moment, he does not just rely on his own uncertain willpower. He turns inward and summons an example. He thinks of Cotto the Younger, a man who chose death over living under a dictator. He vividly recalls Cotto's unbending integrity, his willingness to stand alone for what he believed was right. This mental invocation is not about imitation, but about inspiration. It provides a standard against which to measure his own choice. The question shifts from what is expedient to what is worthy of a virtuous life. This practice makes abstract virtue concrete and attainable. So who stands in your own personal council? It is time to choose your guides. Think of one historical or personal figure you deeply admire for their character, not their accomplishments. It could be a grandparent known for their kindness, a public figure celebrated for their courage, or a historical leader like Abraham Lincoln for his perseverance. Now take a moment and list 3 of their core virtues. Was it their unwavering honesty, their boundless compassion, their quiet discipline? Write those 3 traits down. These are not mere words, they are your new criteria for decision-making. The next time you face your own form of political pressure, your own moment of potential compromise, ask yourself, how would my chosen figure express those virtues here? You are not alone in your struggle. You are being guided by the best of humanity. The person who betrayed you will be dust, and so will you. Is this grudge how you want to spend your fleeting time? This stark truth is the engine of the 21st Stoic principle, a profound reminder of life's shortness that makes forgiveness a rational act of self-preservation. Holding onto bitterness after a betrayal is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to suffer. The Stoics argued that life, while brief, is long enough for a life well lived, but we squander it on endless emotional recalculations of past wrongs. Seneca cut to the heart of this waste with stunning clarity. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and it has been given in sufficiently generous measure to allow the accomplishment of the very greatest things if the whole of it is well invested." He is telling us that the problem is not the clock but our focus. We are given a perfectly adequate amount of time, but we choose to spend precious years, months, and days nursing grievances that will mean nothing in a century. This perspective transforms forgiveness from a soft, moral ideal into a hard, practical strategy for reclaiming your most limited resource, your own life. We witnessed this clear-eyed pragmatism in Marcus Aurelius after the ultimate betrayal by Avidius Cassius. The usurper was dead, and the path of vengeance lay wide open. A typical emperor would have embarked on a bloody purge, executing every senator, officer, or official who had even whispered support for the rebellion. Such an operation could have consumed years, breeding more fear, more secret enemies, and more instability. But Marcus Aurelius saw the brevity of his own life and the pressing needs of the empire. He chose reconciliation over retribution. He spent his time not on hunting down the ghosts of a failed revolt, but on the urgent, living work of governing. He traveled to the eastern provinces to personally restore order, reassure the populace, and mend the political fabric. He invested his days in building rather than destroying. By refusing to waste his time on a grudge, he secured his legacy and the empire's peace. His life was not long, but he used it well. Now turn that lens on yourself. Identify one grudge you are holding, large or small. It might be resentment toward a colleague who took credit for your idea, or a deeper hurt from a friend's past betrayal. Acknowledge the weight of it. Feel how much mental energy it occupies, how it replays in your mind, stealing your focus from the present. Now consider the Stoic argument. Your life is finite. Is this recurring thought, this emotional anchor to a past you cannot change, a worthy expenditure of your one precious life? Consciously choosing to release it is not about saying what happened was okay. It is about declaring that your future time is too valuable to be held hostage by a past event. What single grudge could you set down today to free up your energy for what truly matters? The Stoics believed a single, rational law governed the universe, and the best human life was lived in harmony with it. They called this principle the logos, a kind of cosmic reason that structured everything from the movement of the planets to the growth of a seed. For a leader lost in the fog of political maneuvering, this was the ultimate North Star. It meant that justice and duty were not just personal opinions or cultural customs. They were objective realities written into the fabric of existence itself. Your task was to align your own small, human reason with this vast, universal intelligence. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this vision for grounding. He wrote of contemplating the world as a single living being, with a single substance and a single soul. He observed how all things are implicated with one another and how a divine nature runs through them all. this was not a poetic flight of fancy for him. It was a practical lens for governance. It meant that a decision made for the good of the whole was not just politically savvy, it was cosmically correct. Consider a Roman governor stationed in a newly conquered province, a place of different languages, customs, and deep-seated resentments. He faces immense pressure to rule with a heavy hand, to favor Roman interests, and to enrich himself through his position. His personal whim might dictate harsh punishments and exploitative taxes, but if he sees himself as an agent of the universal logos, his role transforms. He is not there to impose his will, but to administer a higher, rational law. He studies local traditions to find common ground with Roman justice. He adjudicates disputes between Roman settlers and native tribes not based on who has more power, but on what is fundamentally fair and reasonable. He becomes a conduit for impartial order, believing that the same rational principle that guides the stars should also guide his court. This alignment with a law greater than himself earns him a different kind of authority, one built on respect rather than fear. His power comes from his harmony with the cosmos, not from the legions at his back. You can apply this cosmic standard to the decisions in your own life. Bring to mind one choice you are currently wrestling with, perhaps a professional dilemma or a personal conflict. Now, set aside all the complicating factors, the fears, and the potential rewards. Ask yourself the simple, stoic question that cuts through the noise. Is the course of action I am considering reasonable and fair? Does it align with a universal sense of justice, or is it driven by a personal desire or a passing emotion? The answer that emerges may not always be the easiest path, but it will be the one that builds an unshakable character, stone by reasoned stone. The most important Senate was the one they held inside their own minds. This was the principle of cultivating an inner court, a private jury where a leader's actions were judged by the only standards that truly mattered, their own unwavering code of virtue. While the roar of the public forum could swing from cheers to jeers in a single afternoon, this internal tribunal remained a chamber of quiet reason, delivering verdicts based on justice and integrity, not popularity or fear. Seneca captured the profound peace that comes from this practice. He wrote that a good conscience is a continuous festival, a perpetual celebration that no external event can disrupt. This was not about feeling morally superior, but about achieving an unshakable inner stability. The festival was the quiet joy of knowing you had acted rightly, a reward that no political victory could ever match. Consider a Stoic quaestor, a young official entrusted with the vast public funds of a province. His role was a notorious breeding ground for corruption. He could easily skim a small fortune from the treasury, justify it as standard practice, and no one would ever be the wiser. The external court of his peers might even applaud his cunning. But the quaestor who had built a strong inner court would face a different judgment. Alone with the ledger, he would hear the clear, demanding voice of his own virtue. His internal jury would ask a simple question: is this just? The answer would be a resounding no. He would record every coin with scrupulous honesty, not because he feared being caught, but because he could not bear the verdict of his own conscience. His integrity was a gift he gave to himself, a private festival that no one else could see, but whose celebration fortified him against every external temptation. You can convene your own inner court today. Find a quiet moment and bring to mind one significant action from your past week. It could be a professional decision, an interaction with a family member, or a private choice. Now act as both the prosecutor and the judge. Present the facts of the case to yourself with total honesty. Did your action align with your deepest values of fairness, courage, and compassion? Did you make excuses for a lapse in integrity? Listen for the verdict from your own conscience without the noise of what others might think or say. This is not an exercise in self-condemnation, but in self-governance. What one action would your inner court commend, and what one might it gently challenge you to improve? The Stoic leader didn't desire power, they desired to use power wisely. This fundamental reorientation of want is the discipline of desire, a practice of training your deepest yearnings to align only with what is good and within your command, your own virtue. Everything else, from political office to public acclaim, was classified as a preferred indifferent, something that might be nice to have but was never essential for a good life. By making your soul aim the cultivation of a just and courageous character, you pull the plug on a major source of emotional turmoil. You can no longer be manipulated by the lure of rewards you might not get or the threat of losses you cannot prevent. The philosopher Epictetus laid out the stark conditions for this freedom. He taught that freedom is secured not by the fulfillment of what you desire, but by the removal of desire. He was pointing to the exhausting cycle of chasing what we do not have and fearing what we might lose. True peace, he argued, arrives when you want only what you can guarantee, your own virtuous thoughts and actions. Imagine a seasoned Roman patrician campaigning for the consulship, the highest political office in the Republic. The unexamined desire would be for the title itself, the purple-bordered toga, the lictors carrying the fasces before him, the adulation of the crowds. If his heart is set on these external trappings, his entire state of mind becomes a hostage to the election's outcome. A loss would be a crushing personal failure, a source of bitterness and despair. But the Stoic patrician retrains his desire. He does not want to be consul, he wants to act justly. He sees the consulship not as a prize, but as a potential platform, a larger stage on which to exercise the virtues of wisdom, courage, and justice for the common good. His campaigning, then, is itself an act of virtue conducted with integrity and a focus on service. On election day, he has already won the only victory that matters because he has acted according to his principles. Whether the votes go his way or not, his inner peace remains unshaken. The office was always a preferred indifferent, a tool. His character was the true goal. Now turn this lens on your own life. Identify one strong desire you are holding onto, perhaps for a promotion, for a certain relationship, or for a particular outcome in a project. Now ask yourself the two Stoic questions. Is the fulfillment of this desire completely within my control? And is this desire aligned with my virtue, or is it for an external reward? The answer might surprise you, revealing where you have inadvertently handed over the keys to your tranquility. What single want could you retrain today, shifting its focus from an external trophy to an internal victory? The Stoics saw our loyalties not as walls but as ever-widening circles. A philosopher named Hierocles gave us this powerful visual model for our moral obligations. Picture a series of rings drawn on the ground. At the very center is your own mind. The next ring out holds your immediate family. Then comes your extended family, followed by your local community, your fellow citizens, and finally, the outermost circle containing all of humanity. Most of us live our lives instinctively, pouring all our energy and concern into the inner rings while ignoring the needs of those in the outer circles. The Stoic practice, however, was to consciously draw the circles inward. Your duty was to bring the concerns of those distant rings closer to the center, to treat the stranger with a measure of the consideration you would give a neighbor, and the neighbor with the care you would give your own family. This was not just a nice sentiment, it was a discipline of expanding empathy. It made the demonization of a political opponent, someone in that outer ring, much more difficult. You were training yourself to see them as part of your shared human circle, a person who has simply lost their way. Consider a Stoic emperor facing a rebellion led by a once trusted general. The easy, automatic reaction is to place that general in the outermost circle, to label him an enemy and a traitor, and to respond with pure, unthinking hatred. But the emperor practicing the circles of Hierocles would pause. He would consciously work to draw that general circle inward. He would remind himself that this man is still a fellow citizen, a human being with reasons, however flawed, for his actions. This does not mean excusing the betrayal or refusing to administer justice. It means that the emperor's response is guided by a desire to restore the health of the whole human community, not by a personal vendetta. His aim becomes to bring the general back into the fold through fair judgment, or to neutralize the threat with a calm focus on the common good, rather than being consumed by a rage that clouds his reason. This mental exercise dissolves the us versus them thinking that fuels so much political and personal conflict. So, bring to mind someone you are currently in conflict with, a colleague, a relative, or a political figure you strongly disagree with. In your mind's eye, see them standing in one of your outer circles. Now, what would it mean to draw their circle just one step closer? It does not require agreeing with them or becoming their friend. It might simply mean making a conscious effort to understand the pressure they are under, or choosing to respond to their next provocation with calm reason instead of matching their hostility. What one small act could you take to acknowledge their shared humanity, and in doing so, strengthen your own character? To the Stoic, there were no random events, only a pattern too large for us to see. This deep trust in a rational universe, the Logos, was the ultimate anchor in a storm of political chaos. It was the conviction that every occurrence, even the most painful betrayal, was woven into the fabric of a coherent and purposeful whole. This belief did not make the pain disappear, but it transformed the experience of it. Instead of railing against the universe for an injustice, the Stoic leader could accept the event as a necessary part of the grand design, a piece of a puzzle whose final image they were not meant to comprehend. This surrender to a higher order provided a profound and unshakable sense of peace, allowing them to endure immense turmoil without ever losing their fundamental hope in the structure of reality itself. Marcus Aurelius offered a direct instruction for cultivating this trust. He wrote that we must accept everything that happens as if we had asked for it, as part of the whole. He was not suggesting we become masochists who crave suffering, but that we adopt the mindset of a willing participant in a story written by a rational author. When you stop fighting the plot and start trusting the narrative, you find a strange and powerful form of acceptance. Consider how Marcus Aurelius applied this during the Antonine Plague, a devastating epidemic that swept through the empire, killing millions, including his own legions and citizens. A lesser leader might have seen this as a meaningless, cruel act of fate, a senseless tragedy that shattered any belief in a just world. But Marcus, guided by his trust in the Logos, interpreted the plague not as a random horror, but as a part of the natural order. It was a phenomenon of nature, like a storm or a flood, that he was duty-bound to face with virtue. His focus shifted from asking why this was happening to him, to asking how he could respond with courage, justice, and compassion for his people. This trust did not numb him to the suffering, but it gave him the emotional stability to lead effectively through it, to organize relief efforts and maintain order without being consumed by despair. He accepted the plague as part of the whole, and that acceptance freed him to do his part within it. You can practice this same deep trust with the challenges in your own life. Bring to mind a current difficulty, a setback at work, or a personal conflict that feels chaotic and unfair. For a moment, set aside the story of why it should not be happening. Instead, practice the Stoic phrase. Say to yourself quietly, this too is part of the whole. This is not a spell to make the problem vanish. It is a recalibration of your perspective, an active choice to trust that even this unwelcome event has a place in your journey, and that your power lies not in rejecting it, but in finding the virtuous path through it. What current struggle could you begin to meet with this simple, revolutionary statement of trust? That unshakable core is the final destination of all these Stoic paths. Whether it was Marcus Aurelius fortifying his inner citadel, Seneca loving a fate of exile, or Cato focusing only on what he could control, each practice served a single, unified purpose. They were building an island of calm in a sea of chaos, a stability sourced not from titles or triumphs, but from the bedrock of their own character. The dichotomy of control taught them where to invest their energy. Amor Fati taught them how to embrace every outcome. The inner citadel gave them a place to retreat and remember who they were when the world tried to tell them otherwise. These were not separate tricks, but interlocking parts of a single, resilient mindset. Seneca perfectly captured the result of this lifelong labor. He wrote that the wise person is in harmony with themselves and with the whole universe. Their life is a peaceful, ordered one, he said, and they can be happy alone, just like God, but also in a community, unlike the proud. This is the ultimate constancy, a life where external noise cannot disrupt an internal symphony. So we leave you with one final, personal question. With all these tools now laid before you, which single Stoic practice will you choose to carry forward? When you face your next moment of political pressure, your next sting of betrayal, or your next wave of anxiety, what will be your first move? Will you pause to guard your impression? Will you mentally rise above for a view from the heavens? Or will you simply remind yourself of what is and is not yours to command? Your journey toward an unshakable character begins with that one conscious choice. We would love to hear which principle resonates most with you. Share your commitment in the comments below and join a growing community exploring how ancient wisdom can navigate modern life.